I met JT on a blind date. And I wasn't there very much long until he took a deck of cards down and said he was going to tell my fortune.
Where'd you go on the date?
We went to, he was staying with his cousins, and we went to his cousin's house. So he taking this deck of cards. Taking this deck of cards down, and he said, I'm going to shuffle through them like he was telling my fortune. He said, I'm going to marry you. I thought it was just a joke, but we were having fun. So when I started to go, I was going to go with my girlfriend up to her folks and spend a week up there. So, and I was going to go on the bus. And he said, well, he'd go to his sister's at Old Glory, and he'd catch the bus out of town, because where he was staying was out of Abilene. So when we got out there he was. And he rode the bus with us till we got to his, he was going to Rule, and I don't remember the town I was going to.
What time of the year was it? Do you remember that?
In the fall, because I got to my girlfriend's house and they was picking cotton. So that week I went out and picked cotton with him. And he made the date to go to a dance the next Saturday. So he come over and we went to the dance, and we had a real good time. And when we got home, he wouldn't let me have the card, and I promised I'd marry him. And when he first started, I thought he was kidding. So, to tell you the truth, I was kind of, he stayed till daylight, and I was kind of afraid. I didn't know the people that was visiting.
He stayed till daylight? I mean, at this friend's house.
We was in the car. He wouldn't let me have the car, and I promised I'd marry him. So,
Didn't like his sister or something say, you take that girl home? Or?
Well, he wanted me to go to his sister's and get her to go with us, and her husband.
To get married?
Yeah.
Right, that night?
Well, this was daytime then.
Okay.
So we went to his sister's, and he told his sister, said we was going to go and get married. Aspermont, where we got married. She said, you take that girl home. And I thought, well, boy, I don't know what I'm getting into. He kept on. And about that time, her husband walked up. Mike, you've heard us speak of Mike. She said, Mike, go in there and talk some sense in them kids' head and make him take that girl home. He said, well, he wasn't going to make him take him home. He said, I'll go with them if they want me to. So they both went. So we got married.
Are there a few other details you can give me? Like, you just, that day,
well,
did you tell
we come back and we didn't have no money. We lived with Mike and Alice for...
Like, what was did you tell your family you were getting married?
No.
You didn't tell?
I didn't have time to tell nobody.
So, how did, your father, and how did...
They lived at Abilene, and I was way up there. It's up there by...
Like how many miles away? Like more than 100?
About that, I imagine.
100 miles. So you couldn't, there's no way you could go 100 miles.
We didn't have phones. We didn't have phones. So anyway, we come back and we lived with them because we didn't have no money. We didn't have nothing. We lived with them from September to December. And they wanted to go see their mother and dad, or Alice wanted to go see her mother and dad. And JT wanted to come to California. He didn't have no job there. So we all rode out here in a one-seated Pontiac. And there was Pete, and Mike and Alice and JT and me. I sat in his lap the whole time out here.
All the Texas side.
Well, now, sometimes JT would drive and Alice would hold Pete, or vice versa. We wouldn't do that now.
You might, but most people wouldn't.
I don't think I'd do that now.
You could try.
But anyway, we got out here and they act like it was all right. What else could they do? And then we lived there for the 3 months.
They did have a sleep.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
What else could they do, because we was there? And he had to borrow $7 for us to get married.
Wow. If you can remember anything about about the actual ceremony, was there any? It was just the 3 or 4 of you?
It was on Sunday, and we had to call the justice of peace or somebody like that out.
Very cool. So there wasn't any music or
No, there wasn't nothing.
just we're gonna get married.
He just called his wife out to be a witness, and
If
that was it.
If Lonnie had done this.
I'd have died.
Okay. I was just curious. I just want to compare.
If you'd have done it, I'd have died.
Well, it's okay if you do it. Well,
If I'd have had any sense, I wouldn't have done it either.
none of us would be here now if you'd had any sense. None of us would be here now. So, it's a little toast. So, no sense.
Yes, and I really didn't. I guess I went. Well, I know I did. I went along with it. But I sure would have a fit if Lonnie or any of you kids had done that. I think, are they crazy?
How did you decide to stop in Imperial Valley?
That's where JG's folks lived. So he worked for the Imperial Irrigation District.
Who were some of the first friends you made there, or some folks you met and liked?
Geraldine Kinney. Tell you the truth, we didn't make too many friends, or I didn't, because I didn't go very much.
One friend you did not make. Who was the woman who spanked Dad or something like that? The woman at the.
Did what?
There was a woman who she gave Dad a whipping, and then she
Well,
said.
that was when we started construction work during the war. And we was living in a kind of a camp life. Had tents, and we had a trailer. 16-foot trailer. Can you imagine living in a 16-foot trailer? People nowadays wouldn't go camping in a small. We lived in it.
What who was that woman that, and what happened to that?
Well, she didn't like us, and she's jealous of us. But the one that I thought didn't even live there. It's just her mother and dad and them that lived there, and they just told her. And they just jealous of us. So I was cooking supper one night, and I need the onion. So I went out to this tent. People lived in the tent. I asked her for an onion. And when I started to go, she said, how'd Lonnie like his whipping? I said, I didn't whip him. I haven't whipped him. She turned to her daughter and said, tell her what happened, and said, and if you lie, I'll whip you. So she told me. She said there was a big irrigation ditch out there. And some of them was swimming and doing first one thing another. And she said Lonnie was throwing pebbles in the water. I said, why didn't you come tell me that he's doing that? Oh, you wouldn't have done nothing anyway, she said. I said, well, why didn't you come tell me and see if I'd do anything? And she said, go tell your mom that I whipped you. And said, tell her if she don't like it, I'll whip her ass. And so the lady told me that, and I just run back over to the trailer house and went to digging for me a pair of shorts, because I figured I'd get the devil beat out of me, but I was going to try. So I went over there and knocked on the door and went in the door. I would never pull a something like that stupid now, because she could have whipped me and nobody would know about it. I said, I heard you whip Lonnie. She said, I did. I said, I heard you said if I didn't like it, you'd whip my ass. She said, I did. I said, get out here and get started then. When she come out the door, I grabbed her with the hair of the head and I jerked her clear to the ground. You know, I was so worked up and figured I'd get a whipping. And I thought, well, I better get my licks in while getting's good. And I stood over and just slapped her on the face, just like I was astraddle of her. And I'll give you a clue, when I let her up, she didn't ask for no lower.
She didn't ask for what? For no?
She didn't ask for any more.
Oh, no.
But I figured,
Wow.
I figured JT would just have a fit, because I figured he'd embarrass him. But anyway,
But did he mind?
he was late for coming in from work that night. And I said, how come you late? Of course, that was during the war, and they worked overtime sometimes. Oh, he said, I'd stop for a beer or two. And he couldn't have stopped for a beer or two. There wasn't nothing to him in his job, and he's walking. And I said, I had a fight. He didn't say anything, and I thought, oh my goodness, let's get this thing over with. And I said, did you hear me? I said, I had a fight. He whirled around and says, to hell, you say. And I said, yeah, I did. So he said, well, I guess I'll have to whip the old man then. I was so happy when he said that. Well, they'd been acting smart.
Well,
And I had a girlfriend there, and she'd moved, and she told me when she moved, said, they're going to whip you. You're going to have a fight. Said, they're going to whip Lonnie. So she'd already kind of prepared me for it. And JT, too, he knew that she'd said that, so he said, well, I guess he'd have to whip the old man. But the old man wasn't wanting any of it.
the old man wasn't gonna have, he didn't want any part of it?
I was told that went back in there and told them, and they told him about it, he said, you better watch out, she'll whip the whole damn bunch. And at that time, I would have tried it.
So nothing else ever happened?
No. We finished the job and moved on. Went to Flagstaff.
Wow. Did you mind moving around so much, or? You okay?
Well, I thought we had to. While I worked. Well, when we went to Flagstaff, that was when we left Imperial Valley. And JT wanted to run a drag line. In Imperial Valley, he didn't run a drag line. So we was going on vacation, and we was going to go to Flagstaff first, and if he got a job, he was going to stay, and I was going to come up with my folks. So he did get a job, and Lonnie and I got on the bus and come to my dad's. We didn't have phones then. You couldn't tell them you was coming. But so we had to call a taxi to take us out to Papa's. Because we didn't even know we was going ourselves. And I had $5. We divided our money when we left. I got to Modesto, I had $5. When I hired a taxi to bring us across the bridge over here where you've been like going to Modesto, I asked him, I said, how far could I go on $5? He said he'd take me to the bridge. And I said, okay. And Lonnie grabbed all the way to the bridge, think I'd spent all my money. So when we got to the bridge, he felt sorry for us and said he'd just take us on up there.
Wait, how far are you trying to get? All the way to where?
It's the first house after you cross the bridge coming this way on the right. So when we...
Whose house was that?
My dad's.
Oh, your dad's house, okay.
And they's picking cherries. I said, all right, we'll go out and pick cherries. So I put on a pair of his overalls and his old hat, and I went out and picked cherries. And Lonnie, I'd pick the top, and Lonnie picked the bottom. And we made darn good. But when he come over to pay us, and I stepped up to get it, and he said, this check's for Corinne Mathis. And I said, I am Corinne Mathis. But he didn't know me from the rig I'd been wearing out in the field. So he built us a little shack. In fact, I've got a picture of it. And he wrote and told me that he built us a one-room cabin, but he'd have to wait till the next payday to send for us because he'd spent all his money. So I sat down and I wrote him a letter and I said, I've been working and I've got money to come home, but I think I'll wait till you cool off first.
How are you guys doing today? How are you guys doing? Is everything fine?
Yeah, everything's good.
Okay, good.
I said, I think I'll wait till you cool off first. So then I got a telegram telling me to catch the next bus.
Why were you telling him to cool off? Was he angry or?
Yeah, he said, I have to wait till next payday to send you the money, but I don't guess you care.
Oh.
So anyway, did you hear me telling about how we got there? We didn't have any money, and Lonnie said, Mom, let's ride the train. And I thought, well, that's a good deal. And it's a Santa Fe that runs through here. And I didn't know they had Santa Fe buses because we'd always rode the Greyhound. So I sent him back a telegram telling him that we'd be on the next so-and-so Santa Fe. I never said train, I said Santa Fe. Lord, they let us out there and we caught the bus and went out where I thought he'd build us a house or a cabin. And when we got out there, it wasn't where I thought it was, but I went in. And the lady said, there's a new place right down here. I asked her if there was a fellow there with a 38 Ford that had a California license on it. She said, no, but there's a new camp down here. Said, wait till my husband gets home. Said, you come in. Said, wait till my husband gets home. Said, we'll go look. So when her husband come in, we went and looked. We went down where she said it was a new camp. There's a kid come out there, he's about 10 or 12, and jumps up on the fender of the car. And I said, is there a fellow living here that's got a 38 Ford with California license on it? He said, yes, and said, that man's going crazy. He said, he's met every bus. And said he's even made arrangements for the people to meet him tonight. So I just walked inside, and some fellow was staying with him while I was getting out here, and he's getting his stuff together, and I said, you sure he's coming in here? Yes, he said, he'll be here before he goes to work, because he's meeting the bus and Flagstaff, and said he's already made arrangements with people out here to meet him tonight. And I thought, fine and good. So he come driving up in that Ford, and I can just see him today. And I just unconcernedly walked out the door, and he just scooted down on the steering wheel like this, and he said, where in the goddamn hell did you come from? Oh, me, I was so proud to see him, but he is proud to see me, too.
Yeah. Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
So what shall I talk about now?
I was gonna ask you to tell a little about your dad.
My dad?
Yeah. Dad talks about him a lot. I don't, I never.
Well, as I say, he lived out on the river, and he thought Lonnie was the one. He's but Lonnie, just about like Lonnie is Kevin's baby.
What was he like, your dad?
Well, he wasn't very big. He wasn't a big guy. And he loved to fish. He'd take Lonnie fishing with him. And every time we'd come up on a trip, we used to come up before we moved up. He'd always give Lonnie a nickel or dime. They didn't have any money. So he'd give him a nickel one time, and he brought him to Escalon. And he bought 2 or 3 cents worth of candy. And the guy asked him, said, what are you going to buy the rest with? What are you going to buy with the rest? And he said, well, I'm not spending all this today.
That made your dad real proud.
Of course it did. And my youngest sister, she said she used to just live for the time I brought him up. It's Benny, you never did see, but you remember. You remember her?
Yeah,
Sonya's name, remember? Well, she was home then. When her and Lonnie made a good pair. There's watermelons across from their house, and they'd go out and get a watermelon, and Benny'd tell him, now don't you tell nobody.
They would steal a watermelon? Oh, okay, yes. They would steal.
And of course, Papa and them expected it, and they'd ask them, and Benny'd say no, and Lonnie, he'd tell them if they did get one.
He would tell them that, yeah, they'd stolen it? Or?
If they got one, well, they knew if they got it, they stole
Oh,
it.
okay. Okay.
Well, there's a lot I could say, but I can't think of it.
Like, Dad would say, whenever he'd be talking, like maybe having an argument, you could tell if he was getting a little worked up because he'd start rocking faster and faster in his rocking chair.
He'd cross his legs and wiggle his toe. And I remember one time I was up here, and Lonnie would get sleepy, and he'd get real cross. He'd be real cross. And I'd either have to read to him or give him a whipping to make him hush. So we was out there one day, and he's just a mess. So I decided I was going to whip him and put him to bed. If I made him cry, he'd get mad and go to sleep. Papa says, you're not whipping that baby. I said, I think I am. So Lonnie, he knew Papa was taking up for him, so he run from him. When he did, I took after him, and Papa took after me.
So did Dad get his whipping? Or?
Yeah, when I got him, I gave him a spanking and put him to bed, and he went to sleep.
Kind of different. How did JT? This is before you ever met him, I guess. How did he lose part of his ear?
In a fight, even when the guy was drunk, he didn't even know when he lost it. He didn't even know how come it.
And we still don't know. He just woke up.
And he didn't find it. He didn't find the piece, so.
Of his ear.
Alice said she went in to wake him up that morning, or went in the bedroom where he was, and said there's blood everywhere. Can you imagine that?
And we don't even know how he. I mean, did someone cut it or bite it? We don't know. We don't
They
know.
bit it. They think he bit it.
Bit it off.
That's what they could tell. As you say, I don't know how they knew.
And we don't know what the fight was about.
No, and they didn't either. They didn't either one remember.
No.
Isn't that awful?
I wonder if he swallowed the ear.
They've talked about that.
I guess that makes sense. Wow.
Okay, here you go.
Yeah, well, thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Maybe what's one of your your first or fondest memories of of Joan, of my mom? You know, when you first met her.
Oh, one night Lonnie brought her home. They was going to Oakdale to a parade.
To a parade.
A parade. And he brought her home, and I thought she was pretty cute. I didn't know he was going to keep going with her, but he did. So.
Any other impressions of her? Or?
No, I liked her.
Was she a troublemaker?
Oh, Lord. No, she wasn't a troublemaker.
She's always carrying that bottle of Jack Daniels with her, and a pack of cigarettes.
You had a very nice mom.
Oh, okay. I guess this was before she started smoking and drinking. Any other memories of her, or about
Yeah,
after
one
that?
time Lonnie come home and said, "Mom, can Joan come over here and stay all night?" And I said, "Where would she sleep?" And I was sleeping on, he was sleeping on a twin bed and I was sleeping on a big bed. He said, "You can sleep on the twin bed and she can sleep on the other one." And I said, "Okay, bring her on." And the folks was going to the cabin, she didn't want to go.
Oh, okay.
And then another time, he was working over in the Bay Area and he wanted to come over for Thanksgiving. So, and I was going, so he asked me if she'd go with me. And that was around the first, and she tells me now, I don't even remember it, I've been paying attention to it, that I was the first one she ever seen that turned around. Looked in place of using the mirror up there, I'd turn around and see if anybody's coming or something like that.
For the...
You know, going down the road, if I wanted to change lanes or something, I'd turn around.
Oh, I see.
No, I heard she was very nice.
When did you learn they were getting married? Do you remember, did Dad tell you, or?
One Christmas, they went together a long time.
Yeah.
One Christmas, I asked him, I said, "Do you plan on marrying her?" Well, he didn't know, he might. And I said, "Well, if you think you are, buy her a real nice gift." So he bought her a cedar chest.
A cedar chest. Oh. For Christmas that year. Hadn't proposed her yet. He bought her a
Well, I don't know what he'd done.
Oh.
I didn't know it if he had. I asked him if he's going to marry her, and he said, "I might."
And of course, he never did ask her, right? I mean, she asked him.
That's what they're telling.
That's what they tell. We don't know what really happened. But do you remember when you first learned that they were definitely getting married?
No, I
Do you
don't.
remember that?
I took it for granted there was, but
Yeah.
when you bought her the cedar chest.
Yeah, cedar chest. That's.
But no, I can't remember.
Very good. I just wanted to record when I when I gave Grandma the chicken. I said, "I'm going to buy a big bag of feed," and you said don't make it too big. You may not be around for that long.
Well, you never know.
You never know. Let me. I mean, and I don't know,
The one thing I'm afraid of is he'll get out there in the road and Carl's run over it.
That's a possibility. That would be a shame, because then you probably wouldn't eat them.
Oh, I would if I seen it happen.
No, we wouldn't want to waste it. Kevin, are there any like memories, like things he did as a kid that you thought were especially cute, or any stories you remember?
This is a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin built him a house, or Lonnie probably built it for here. Let me get your saucer. Put that.
Oh no, I'm okay. Go on. I'll put it right there.
Built him a playhouse out in the walnut tree.
Mm.
And Kevin, he was just the best thing to Kier as long as things was going his way, you know. And he wanted Kier to play in that treehouse with him. And I didn't want him out there. Kier was practically a baby. Oh, Grandma, I'll watch him. And you know, Kevin was the type. If he said he would, he would.
Mm.
So he took Kier out there and he helped him up in that treehouse, and I grabbed the ironing board and went to ironing because I was nervous. Couldn't do anything else.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, they made it. And when I bring him down here, Kevin would sleep with I'd sleep with both of them.
Mm.
And I'd tell them that I'd pray with them. They'd say a little prayer. And if they cried at night, Kier was a mama boy, and Kevin was a daddy boy.
Mm.
But down here, if they cried, Kier'd always cry for daddy, and Kevin would cry for mama.
Oh.
And yet at home, it was right reversed.
Wow. Oh.
So, anyway.
What would you do if they started crying? How would you stop them from crying?
Well, I usually put them in the bed with me and just talk to them.
Mm.
Because wasn't nothing else to do.
You could whip them.
I wouldn't whip them.
Okay.
Your dad whipped Kevin one time, and I said, please, if you got a whipping, don't whip him from me.
Mm.
No,
Mm.
I never did have to whip him.
Mm.
But one time, Kevin and Kier and me and Mac went to the store. And I had Kier up in the basket, and Kevin was riding on the back of it. And Mac, he kind of shoved it, and it made me mad. So I told him to check out the groceries, and I was trying to not let the boys know that I was mad.
Mm.
So I told Mac to check out the groceries, and I was carrying Kier in my arms. He was little. And Kevin and Kier walked out on the street, and I was standing there on the sidewalk, and Kevin stomped his foot and said, Mac has been a bad boy.
Mm.
So you don't put much over kids.
Mm-hmm. Why would they be crying? I mean, would they miss home? Or?
Yeah, they missed home, and it was always at night. They didn't cry in daytime. I could manage.
Mm.
But at night, when they'd wake up, one wanted water and the other one wanted milk. And if one woke up, it woke the other one up.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually slept with both of them.
Mm.
So anyway,
Mm.
we got along.
I know that one of my, a favorite memory for me are those wonderful breakfasts here with all the different jams.
Well, I
and,
guess it was.
The biscuits. That was just the best breakfast in the world. Just more biscuits than you
Well,
could
I
possibly
never
eat.
thought her. I'd have got a can of biscuits.
Well, I don't really eat that anymore. Oh yeah, though I should have brought the biscuits. It's a good breakfast.
Here's one that thoroughly enjoyed the breakfast too.
Mm.
And one time, Annie and Joe went somewhere and they left it. I don't remember you guys being here that time, but maybe you was. He went shopping with me, I know. And he said, Grandma was having one of them good old breakfasts.
Mm. And you always had to drink. Do you remember what we always had to drink? You always had a big can of high C.
Yes.
Different. That was
Some kind of punch or
Yeah,
something.
that was great. That was great.
Yeah. Kier drank so much, so I always had it
Yeah.
on hand.
See. Well, me, any early memories of was I a Did I cry for Mom or for Dad?
No, you was perfectly happy here.
Exactly. I was.
I made
I
you
never
happy.
cried. That's right.
No way.
No.
And I remember one time you was, you was in our arms. You was walking, but you wasn't too old. And Joan was worrying what she's going to do for a babysitter. Give it this. You didn't even talk.
I was pointed?
Pointed at me.
Oh. How old was I? Was I very old?
No, you wasn't
Oh,
very
I
old.
pointed at you. Wow.
Yeah. No, you was a baby. And one time I went down there and your babysitter, the kids had something, chicken pox or something. And Joan was wondering what she's going to do with you, or take you over there and get you exposed or something. So I told her I'd bring you home with me. Well, of all times, you usually wanted to come home with me, but that time you didn't. So you finally told me that you'd come home with me if I'd take you to a bookstore. And I said, okay, I will. So we could come down here from Sacramento. Max sat out in the car with you while I run in here and look through the phone book, find the bookstore. We headed for Modesto. We found your bookstore.
How old was I? Like less than 10 years old? Or?
Oh, Lord, you was less than 3 years old.
Oh, dear,
I
oh, dear,
guess.
oh, dear.
But you could leave you in a bookstore and you was perfectly happy.
Yeah, some things don't change that much.
I remember one time I went to Sacramento and you was with me. You must have been 3 or 4 years old then. But you was so good, and I don't know what I was buying, but you was walking around there, and I asked the clerk, I said, where's my little boy? She said, well, I didn't know you had one. And I looked, and you was playing, just so quiet. You could always entertain yourself. And that time I didn't get what I wanted then, so we went down there where Mac was, and I decided to go back. I don't even know what I was getting. And you asked if you could stay with Mac, and he was just tickled if you wanted to stay with him. But you know, now I wouldn't leave you. I'd be afraid somebody'd take you.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
That's the
these
difference.
days, yeah.
Yeah. But then I wasn't afraid.
Mm-hmm.
So you just played around. But Mac loved to keep you.
Oh.
He just was real happy that, of course, when Kevin and Kira, when they was growing up, there's 2 of them were.
It's a lot more work. Right?
Well, it's
It'd be a
not work,
handful.
it's watching. And
Right. I think they'd be a handful.
But he loved to keep you.
Kind of a different question is, when you're growing up, what were some of your favorite things to eat? You know, what were like special?
Well, when we didn't have favorite things, we eat what we could get.
But wasn't like ever there was ever a special
That was
once a year kind of a?
Oh, well, we love stew.
Oh, okay.
We love stew, but most generally we had biscuits and gravy. And the gravy was made out of water, or it wasn't made out of milk. It was water.
Mm. Was there meat involved, or was it
No.
just water and flour, or
Yeah, water and flour
water and flour?
and some grease.
Okay, grease.
Yeah.
Was that special occasions, or was that?
Oh, special occasions.
Oh, no.
We had different things just like you do then.
Okay.
Not that good.
No.
Chicken was good then, because we didn't always have chicken. But every Saturday, if we was working or something, Papa tried to have stew. That was a big deal for us. And red beans and all the sweets we got, Mom would make them, we called them tea cakes. It was just dough made up, and rolled out, and Mom would cut tea cakes. That was a big thing. But we didn't have too many extras.
Yeah. What? How many kids were there, and how many?
It's 13.
13 again.
There was 12 girls and 11 girls and 2 boys.
Oh. Mm.
You can imagine that was a sight, even looking back. But we traveled from job to job. We'd go to Crystal City and around there and in the winter cut spinach, and by the time the spinach was gone, we'd go on down to San Antonio and chop cotton. By the time that was gone, why, there'd be cotton to pick. So we'd pick cotton, and when we run out of cotton to pick, we'd just kind of followed around because different places had different stages of cotton. Well, then we'd come out on the plains, the last go around, and we'd pick the cotton out there, and when that was all gone, it was getting cold, and then we'd go back to South Texas, Crystal City, and we'd cut, by that time the spinach was coming on. So we just started over again.
And but what year was this? You know, what was this, the 1930s or?
29 and 30.
Okay.
And then when we moved, we finally wound up at Abilene, and I got a job keeping house. I promoted. And by that time welfare was on, and Papa and them got on welfare, and Sylvia and I got a job of keeping house, and we sure thought we was doing something. I got $3 a day a week, and I had as many clothes in as I do now. Pair of shoes, I could get them for $1, $1.50. And I even went to the beauty shop then. You can't imagine how much I got out of that $3 a week. But then you could get a cube of butter for a nickel. If you if you was buying groceries. But these people, he was a chicken poultry manager. He didn't raise them or anything, but he had them in town. And they had this big nice house. And oh Lord, and I had my little house out in back. I really thought I was living. So I could cook anything they told me to, and they lived good.
So you kept house and you cooked for them as well? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I even cooked.
Did you know how to cook pretty well?
Well, when they asked me to work over there, I told Mom, I said, I don't know how to cook, because all I knew how to do is pick cotton, cut spinach, and do things like that. She said, well, Corinne, you're real bright. Said, you know when things taste good. And said, that's all it takes. And I thought, well, but the main thing I had to learn is how to set the table, because they had dinners.
Oh.
Social dinners.
Wow.
And I didn't shake like this.
How did you learn how to set?
She did tell me that.
Oh, the missus.
Yeah, you set the fork, the knife on the right, I believe, and the spoon by it, and the fork on the left, and ever how many forks she had or spoons. But that was a big thing.
This is like for many people, not just the two of them.
Yeah. This was when they'd have their dinners.
Wow.
And you served on the left of them, I believe. Because they'd reach over, to get their biscuits or whatever. Yeah, I thought I was doing all right when I got that far along.
What do you think if you'd never met JT? Where do you think you'd be now?
Oh, I'd have met somebody else. There was a big CC camp at Buffalo Gap, which was about, I don't know, I'm just guessing at this because I forgot, but I think it's about 15 miles from Abilene. And we'd go down there, we'd know we was going to get away home if we got down there because the CC camp was full of boys.
Well, what's a CC camp?
It was
Conservation camp? No.
I forget what it
Was it a
was.
military thing, or was it a?
It was kind of military, but it wasn't. It was just, best I remember, just a way of feeding people.
Oh, okay.
It was run like military,
Mhm.
but artist was in it, my brother.
Hmm.
And
Civilian
at a
Corps?
certain age, you couldn't be in it. They put you out at a certain age.
Oh, okay. So you had if you got it there, you knew you'd get a ride home.
Mhm.
Okay.
We danced. And one night we was there, and I looked across the hall, and this guy, he was dark, tall, dark, and handsome. And I looked at my girlfriend. I said, "You see that guy over there?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "He's mine." And pretty soon somebody tapped me on the shoulder, and I looked up, and it was that guy. Boy, I tell you, I wasn't so brave.
And did you dance or what?
Yeah, we danced. In fact, I went with that guy for a while, but those guys down there in the camp really didn't have any cars because they're just like, going around.
Mhm.
But anyway, some of the guys around there, in fact, I had some cousins that I went with some to the dances and places, and they had cars. They wasn't in that. They had cars.
Do you remember his name? That guy?
Cecil.
Cecil. Okay.
I don't know his last. I don't remember his last name. But
Okay.
first name was Cecil, and I went with another one that I just really liked, and I really don't know what his name was. Isn't that funny? You know somebody that well, and then you forget.
Who was this other guy?
He was.
How'd you meet him?
I met guys through my cousins. They'd be running around my cousins, and I'd meet them.
But there's this one particular guy that you liked. You can't remember. Who was he?
His name was Bob, but I don't remember his last name.
How
I don't even remember what he did.
Do you remember how you met him?
No, not him, I don't. Well, I met him, my cousins brought him up there. I had two boy cousins, and they'd bring boys. So one night we went to this dance, and Sylvia, my sister, was with me, and I was with this guy, and he got drunk. And my girlfriend, her husband, it was his car. They was sitting up in the front, and me and this guy was in the back, and he was drunk. And I thought, I'm going to sneak out of here. So I got up to get in the front seat, and I fell out of that car. And it was one of those old kind of cars. It had a top on it, but didn't have no side,
Oh, okay.
It didn't have any windows.
Okay.
And I fell out. Sylvia was with me that night, too. And I sat down, and I just waited for them to come back there, and they place of backing up or something. They just jumped out and run back there. And I was just sitting up there. And I was skinned from my toes to my head.
Oh, wow.
It was a sight. And I went home.
Was the car moving? What happened? No.
It was moving when I fell out.
Okay.
Of course, it's not like the cars today. It wasn't going too fast.
Okay.
It had going in speed. I would be here.
Oh, my God.
So the next morning I got up and had to go in and fix breakfast. And before I went in and fixed breakfast, the people next door had a maid, and she's colored. So I went over there and she patched me up. And when I went in, of course, the people I was working for discussed what was wrong, because I told them that I fell out of the car, but they didn't believe they didn't know what I'd done.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard one of them say something about, well, he probably got fresh with her, and she jumped out. And the other one said, no, she wouldn't jump out and leave Sylvia in there if he was getting fresh with her. So, but I was a mess.
Wow. And I guess you didn't see Bob much after that, or whoever the drunk guy was. You didn't.
I don't know if I I don't know if I'd met him or not.
Mm.
But I remember the last time I seen him. I was working, keeping house with these people, and he come over there. And I wanted him to see Lonnie. Lonnie was baby.
Mm.
He looked at him and he said, "Oh, if you'd just stayed with me, that could have been our little boy."
Mm. What were some things you would do on dates? If you were, what were some typical things you?
We'd just visit, and we didn't do like they do nowadays, I'll tell you. If you was easy, they use out.
Mm. Mm.
No, they didn't do like they do nowadays.
You go to dances.
We went to dances.
What kind of dancing was it like? Kind of bands?
Well, they had different kinds, but they didn't. Some they had two-step and waltz, but that's the only two I remember having. And square dance. They had square dances. I thought square dance was a lot of fun. Do you ever square dance?
I haven't. I'd like to.
I think you'd like it because I did.
Bob Wills and his Texas
Yeah.
Playboys. Was that in the 1930s or 40s?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and they played that south of the border a lot,
Okay.
and down Del Rio way,
Mm.
and there's one they played a lot the night before JT and I got married, and I can't think what it was. It was Western.
Hmm. You were at a dance the night before you... Oh, yes, I guess you were on a date the night before you got married.
Yeah, well, we went to a dance and then come back, and when I got home, he wouldn't let me out of the car until I said I'd marry him.
Yeah.
Then when you sit out in the car, you just neck, but that's all you done.
Oh, okay.
You didn't get fresh with each other.
Okay.
Or I didn't. But,
Wow. What about, like, when you grew up, colored people, did you mix much, or were there very many in Abilene, or?
I didn't mix with them. We didn't do like we do now.
Oh, okay.
No way. If you did, you just kind of trashing. But they was for maids. And we had one working for us. A man worked for Papa, and then his wife did Mama's housework.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a baby. And I thought that was the cutest thing. And I had to be little. And I was playing with it, and we had a porch, and it was about this high off the ground. And I dropped that baby, and it rolled out on the ground.
Oh.
I don't remember holding it after that. I guess I did.
Oh, dear. But so in general, and what about Mexican folks? Were there very many folks?
They didn't. We didn't go with Mexicans either.
Were there very many?
Now down South Texas it was. In fact, there was a lot, and I got to where I could understand it, but I never did learn to speak it.
Mm-hmm.
But